Hi, welcome to week 6, how to teach your horse to move sideways. There's many benefits as we went through in the Can You video. And this is just to break down this exercise at its most basic level. So when we're moving our horse sideways, we want them actually to move their front end and hind end in turn so that they don't get tangled and they don't lose balance and then I'd end up rushing, pushing forward, or getting confused and even exploding. And so what we're looking at is that the horse has zones. So the front of the horse, including the head and neck, falls into the zone of the horse that controls the front end's direction. So if I send pressure this way, she'll turn her nose away, good girl. And if I put any rhythmic pressure there, she's more likely to go back. And equally, the hind of the horse, especially from here, is for yielding those hindquarters away. Now what you'll find is that the line actually starts behind the girth, but the further back you go, the easier it is to control the back end and send the back part of the horse away. Working on the concept of moving the front and then the hind will slowly get the horse tuning in so that you can just make less and less extreme moves till your horse can respond by your leg just putting pressure in the appropriate area around the girth. So when you first start out, that might look like you're putting more pressure on one end of the other, and that's fine because you will focus on whichever part of your horse isn't moving over. As soon as it moves, you take the pressure off of that, which is the release, and it's the release that teaches, and then you put the pressure on the other part of the horse to get them going. So often you'll find that some horses are very good at moving their front end away from you, and so you just have to go hind, 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 front, hind, 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 front, hind, 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 front, and then vice versa. If you've got a horse who actually wants to dominate you a lot more with their front end, they're quite easy to get them to disengage, so they'll take very little on the hind end, but you probably go in a much more shoulder, shoulder, neck, 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 come on, come on, come on, oh, hind end, go, and then shoulder, 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 neck. Another thing that I think is important is when we set up our horse, when you're first starting this exercise, you want to give them a barrier so that you're only having to break down the sideways and not also trying to shut the front down. Once they've got that sideways along a fence, you can then start to use something like a pole or a smaller barrier and then wean them off of needing that support, where you can just jiggle your rope a little in the way of us for back up, to block any forward energy that you see creeping in. You will need a little as they cross their hooves. If they never went forward at all, they would just have to bang hooves. And for a correct sideways, they actually do cross slightly. So it isn't as dead straight as it looks, but then they rebalance and correct themselves as they go. Yeah. So when I send her, I'm going to send her so that she's facing the fence, and I'm going to point at her eye to let her know that my energy is traveling up along that fence, and then I've got my stick and string ready to communicate with whichever end is not moving. And what I want is to be able to hold it as an extension of my lower arm, rather than I see a lot of people do, having it as a second elbow and then tapping the horse underneath. If you think about it, when we're riding, we're not communicating with the underside of their belly, and what we want is to be able to keep some distance. If your horse gets confused and kicks out at the pressure, you wouldn't want to be in that kick zone. Hopefully, if we take our time, we don't create that kind of confusion in our horse, but obviously we don't live in a perfect world, but we do need to make sure that we keep ourselves safe, so that we can then learn and improve as we go. Walking on. Good. So I'm putting that energy behind her, send her forward, now pointing, and I'm now going to tap the shoulder over. Lots of temptation to browse the foot, gow and gow over. There we go. So you see the yeah. So I'm going to send her so that her nose is facing the fence, and then point towards her eye, send my belly button energy along towards the direction that I want her line to go, and then I'm just using the stick and string rhythmically as possible and tapping, and I'll try and keep those taps light. Obviously if she ignores them, they build up in intensity, so that as she goes she'll start to learn that if she responds on the light tap she won't get that heavier tap, and in the end she just sees the stick coming towards that zone, and that will be enough for her to move over from it. We will do at the end and at the start always make sure our horse is good with us rubbing the sticks, and that takes us back to our week 2 challenge, which is as our horse comfortable with us touching them with our tools. So whenever we've done an activity like this where we may have to tap them as part of communication, I want to revisit that and make sure that they are back to being comfortable and relaxed and we haven't blown them up at all.